Hey everyone, welcome to Career Journey Podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Avila, and today I'm really excited to introduce our guest. We have Hannah Lopez, a graphic designer. And what was really fun about interviewing Hannah is that I've known Hannah for quite some time. We met at a dog park in Mississippi. We both went to the University of Mississippi at the same time, and there was this local dog park where about 10 or so of us would go every single day, sometimes twice a day, and we just became really good friends. And so an old friend, Hannah, she actually designed our logo for this podcast. She designed a logo for my dissertation way back when. So she's been kind of my resident graphic designer ever since. And it was really fun to be able to talk to her about her journey and how she wanted to be a graphic designer ever since she was little, to where she had to finally declare art as her major and had a little kind of hesitation there, all the way to her current jobs, quitting a job, even how the choice of the office that she got was something that kind of impacted her choice of job. So please enjoy my dear friend, Hannah Lopez. Hey everyone, welcome to the Career Journey Podcast, where we explore exciting careers and how to get them from the people who've lived it. I'm your host, Brittany Avila. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Hi Hannah, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Well, in this podcast, we like to start off with basically from the beginning, understanding kind of where you came from in terms of your career. So start us off with a little bit about what you wanted to be when you were a kid.
Sure. So when I was, really little, I wanted to be everything in the book. Like I remember telling my mom, I want to be a tennis player and a ballerina who works at Nickelodeon. Like everything.
Who wouldn't want to work at Nickelodeon?
Right?
Get slimed all day?
Yes, I love that. And then like as I progressed into middle school and they start asking you like, you take these quizzes, it's like, what is best fit for you? And I seem to always get like the more artistic things like theater or writing, and of course like artist. And then like I remember in one class was called Career Discovery, and we actually kind of had to pick like what we wanted to be. And I was like, well, who designs like music album covers? Like who does that? Because that's what I wanted to do because I was so into music. And I looked it up and I was like, oh, graphic designer, that sounds fun. And then I don't know, I always kept that in the back of my mind. And then like, go through high school, I wasn't really too set on anything. And then I got to college, and I had to declare a major. Like I started out as general studies because I didn't know. And then like one day I was just like sitting in a class and I was like, I want to be an art major. Like I'm just going to do it. Why not? And so I went to my advisor. I was like, I want to be an art major. And she was like, why do you want to be an art major? And I was like, I've always wanted to, I've always had a passion for it. I always knew like walking around grocery stores, like looking at packaging, I was always drawn to it. I had a huge appreciation for just the way good packaging looked and was like, I want to make that. And so, yeah, progressed from art major to, as I got to undergrad, I actually declared as a graphic designer. Like I said, I wanted to get my BFA in art, so Bachelor of Fine Arts degree with an emphasis in graphic design. So that's kind of that whole thing or whole progression, I guess you could say.
Well, that's pretty cool. I've never really thought about who designed album covers and things
Yeah,
like that.
I know. That's how it all started for me, I guess.
And then just walking through grocery stores and even looking at kind of packaging designs, that's a really cool way to try to figure out what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Was you said that when you were in college, kind of one day you just like, I'm going to major in art. Was there any hesitancy? Was it hard to make that decision? Were you a little scared or nervous?
No, there was no hesitancy, and actually, after I did it, I remember like going on the internet and seeing like Pinterest or something and looking at art, and I was like, I can do that. Like, I'm going to be a part of that. Like, I thought about the art community as a whole, and I was like, I feel like I'm included in that now because I've just said, that's my major, and so it was actually kind of comforting. It made me feel more included in whereas before I was not committed to anything, and so it was nice to solidify that.
That's great. I like that you felt more a part of a community kind of right away. I know
Yeah,
sometimes people struggle with not really feeling like the community till maybe they get the degree. So being kind of in it
true.
right from the bat is nice. Okay, so then you're an art major in undergrad. Where'd you go to undergrad?
I went to I actually got my associates from Northwest Community College. I guess you could call it an Associate of Arts degree, and then I got my bachelor's. Took 2 years at Ole Miss, and got my BFA with an emphasis in graphic design, or University of Mississippi, I guess.
I know it's hard to always say the full official, but that's obviously how Hannah and I know each other. We met when I was in grad school at University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, and she was an undergrad. We used to go to the same dog park, and our dogs were like best friends.
Yes. Yes.
So you're an undergrad, you're majoring in fine arts. How did you know? So you already knew you kind of wanted to do graphic design,
Mm-hmm.
but did you have an emphasis or a job in mind when you were graduating? What were you thinking you were going to do?
Well, I guess what was always great to me was that my major and the job title I wanted were pretty much the same. I emphasized in graphic design, so I wanted to be a graphic designer. And I guess I loved the two connected in that way. So yeah, I mean, not immediately, but a couple months before I was going to graduate, I definitely started looking at graphic design jobs anywhere.
And walk me through a little, because I'm not too familiar with graphic design careers. Do all graphic designers kind of do the same thing? Are there different areas within
For
kind of
sure.
graphic design? How does that work?
For sure. So, yeah, like you could be a production designer, which is more on the lines. It's more of it's not so artsy. It's more technical, like signs, like on the roadways. Like when I worked at I guess I can say Orca Coolers. When I worked at Orca, just handling the artwork that goes on the cups and coolers that we printed on. Like, so you more so know the technical aspects of using the programs, Adobe Illustrator and Photoshop, and sometimes InDesign. But then there's, graphic designer who emphasizes in packaging, and make the really any sort of packaging, boxes, food boxes, packaging, really anything that comes in a box. Then, of course, there's digital media. So, anything that goes on Instagram, Facebook, websites. So, any sort of commercial website needs like a banner. Of course, they'll need graphics for their social media. So, anything you see that's like text and shapes and that's all a graphic designer. And yeah, but there's definitely graphic designers that do multiple things. You're not just going to be one thing. Actually, I'm dealing with that now in my job, because we're doing like this video series, and so we're having to like design the animation that like the introduction of the video. So I'm actually having to animate in Photoshop, which is weird, but I've never had to do that. So I'm like, let's figure it out together, because the job I work at, they're like, this is new to us too. So I'm like, one more thing that a graphic designer does, you also design things for video animations sometimes.
Nice. So you have to be a little flexible.
Oh yeah, A lot of
and learn new
Googling,
things all the time.
for sure.
Google is every job's best
Oh,
friend.
yeah. I think they should teach a class in how to Google something, like, because you can't always
I
find,
do too.
you can't always find what you're looking for.
And there's so many like tricks. It even has a name and I can't think of the name, but there's like a name for exactly how to find things, like how to use the quotations and
Yeah,
things
and
like
like
that.
asterisk dashes. I don't even know.
Right?
Never had to do
Weird.
that. I've always
I've
managed.
forgotten most of, yeah, I learned a lot of that in undergrad and my master's program, and I forgot most of it. And you move around between the different ones, right? Because you did that technical, you were saying when you
Yeah.
were working on kind of designing for the cups and the coolers.
Yeah,
And then you
sure.
also do some of the, you know, we forgot to mention Hannah designed the logo for this podcast. Thank you,
Yeah.
Hannah.
It was
It
so
looks
fun.
amazing. So yeah, Hannah has designed the logo for this. She also designed the logo for my dissertation when I was
Oh,
doing my
I think we
graduate
both
work.
grown. I was looking at that because we had our Facebook chat and that's where it all was, and I was like, wow, I've gotten a lot better. I feel like
Good. Yeah, that was a long time ago. So hopefully,
for
um,
sure.
all right. So let's rewind a little bit. Go back to you were in undergraduate. You were about to graduate.
Mhm.
How did you find your next job, or what were you looking for?
Yeah, so I wanted to get out of my hometown, which was Oxford, and I was like looking anywhere towards Memphis, Olive Branch, like those are just an hour away. But I just wanted to get out, so I was looking there. I was really ready to settle for anything because I just wanted to have something lined up for after I graduated because need money. But then one day it was like honestly, like I feel like it was a miracle. A friend of mine, I was on my way to a graphic design conference in Dallas, which I thought was so awesome. I was so excited. And my friend texted me, who had a job in Nashville at Orca, and he was like, "Hey, so the new job that I just started, I've gotten close with the design, like the creative director, and they need some help. Like, would you be interested?" And I was like, "Yes." I don't care what they want. Like, yes. I mean, obviously, I got some more information, but in the moment, I was like, you mean I can work in Nashville as a designer? Like, yes. Um, which was so awesome. I mean, so that was like in March of 2017. I did like the interview that following April, like the beginning, and then was moving by May 15th.
Like right after graduation, isn't
I
it?
graduated on, I think, the 13th and started working on that Monday, like the 17th
Wow,
or 15th.
that's
Yeah.
a dream to have a job that quickly right out of school.
I was nuts. And like looking back, I was like, was I crazy? That was absolutely crazy. I mean,
Well,
not really, but
it sounds like again there was no hesitation. You just kind of went with it. Were there
yeah.
other things you needed to consider in terms of a move? I know you
Well,
wanted to move
let
away,
me
but
back up a little bit. So I remember, actually, I don't remember this. My mom remembers this. She was like, Hannah, yeah, I remember you saying, like, in high school, like, that you just wanted to live in Nashville, like that's the goal. And I remember feeling that way. I just never really putting it that way. Like, I never just put it out there, like, that's what I want to do. And so now when she brings it up, she's like, well, you did what you want to do. And I think that's why I just was like, whatever, I'll take whatever job. I just want to be in Nashville. So maybe that's what it was. Also, my husband Tanner, he's always loved Nashville. We would make day trips just to come be here. So that was really like ideal for me in that way.
awesome. And so you moved to Nashville, picked up and moved right after graduation.
Mm-hmm.
What was next? So what did that job look like? Walk us through kind of that day to day.
For sure. So it was definitely more along the lines of like the technical side of things, like I mentioned earlier. So, like taking logos from businesses, anywhere from Coca Cola to, mom and pop shop who just wants their logo on a cup. Take that logo, get it ready for the machine that prints on the cups and coolers, and you send it to them to get approved. So like you show them a visual image, like a literal picture of it on a cup with the logo just where it is, and they approve it or deny it. And that was really it. It wasn't super exciting by any means, but it was something. And I think I remember like the guy hiring me, he was like, well, you're overqualified, but that's okay. Like, I was like, all right. And then,
Was it your bachelor's degree that made you overqualified, or just your level of work?
I think that if you had a bachelor's degree or any schooling of any kind, you would be overqualified for that job just because I actually ended up training, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I ended up training someone with no experience to do that job after I like moved on. So
Okay, so that's good to know. So that technical side doesn't really require a lot of
no, like I could
education.
have probably done it with my associates and maybe even the little bit I learned in high school because I did learn a little bit of like Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign in high school. So like a lot of people ask me like, oh my gosh, how long have you been working in these programs? And I'm like, honestly, it's not fair, but since high school, whereas a lot of people don't have that opportunity. Luckily, my high school like offered those as at least at the time. I mean, that was in like 2008, which I don't think they were teaching as much uh, like Adobe. They might have, but I just looking back, I'm actually surprised. Um, so
And so is
yeah,
that a good starting point for people sometimes that maybe want to do more of the visual arts kind of type of graphic design, but could they get into like a technical side,
yeah,
kind of learn the ropes
I think
working?
so because I also learned a lot. I had a job working at a t-shirt company, and I learned more doing that than I did ever in school. Which I feel like, I mean, that goes for anything. You just be in the field and you learn more, um, or at least build upon that. So that definitely gave me like a really good foundation for that job. And then that, every job's different. You learn different things, but that was definitely a really good starting point. It really gives you practice in the program if you've not used it other than in a classroom setting.
And when did you have that t-shirt job? Was that during college?
That was that during college? Yes, it was. It was in 2015. So, yeah, I did that for about a year and a half. And that helped me a lot in school because while I was taking the classes, like, because you have to take your core classes for Illustrator and you have to, like, do all these, like, very basic projects. And I was like, I know how to do this. Like, I've done this, I do this at work every day. Like, so that definitely helps get me my good basis, I guess, started in learning those because I mean, a huge part of design is just knowing how to achieve what you want to achieve with the software that you have. So,
Great. Now I know I took you kind of on a detour, so let's go back to your
sorry.
job at Orca Coolers. You were doing the technical stuff.
For sure.
Um, again, keep walking us through kind of that day to day.
Okay. So, yeah, so like I did that job for not quite a year. And while I was doing it, they being my bosses, gave me a little more, like they realized like, oh, you do have a little more skill than just slapping logos on cups and coolers. Like, can you do some banners and social media designs for us? And I was like, sure, that's awesome. I'd love to do that. Like, give me all of it. And so I did. And, I think they realized, like, well, we're actually underutilizing you. Let's give you a little more. So they, I guess, gave me a promotion. And then I was production designer and then was bumped up to graphic designer. So it was like, finally. um, and that actually didn't last very long. This may be more reflective of the company, but they ended up firing my boss and giving me his job like all in the same day, and like I
Oh,
didn't even
wow.
get to be trained um, to do his job. Like he was the creative director, I was the designer, like almost entry level, barely mid level, and they're like, "Yeah, just you're creative director now," and I'm like,
How do I do
okay,
that?
sure. I mean, I was like terrified, but I definitely learned like I feel like 5 years worth of like stuff in like a year and a half or two. Because yeah, I mean that was in March of 2018, and I quit this past January or February. So I packed a lot of learning into that. I did everything. So as the creative director, quote unquote, I did all of the like product photos. So I learned a lot of photography. I learned photo editing. I learned how to make a proper banner for the website. I did all their social media posts for the most part. They had some ambassadors where they would, and when I say product photos, I mean the cups, coolers, drinkware. They had some ambassadors who would give us photos, but a lot of them were me. Like when you all of a sudden want to have a sale on a Friday for that Monday, like you need stuff fast. So it's very fast paced. We also had like sports licensing, which was its own headache. Um, I also was like a big, I guess I learned a lot of problem solving because we had like cup printers that put the logos on the cups um, and the cooler printers that puts them on the lids, and like artwork would be wrong all the time. So you'd have to fix that, which is its own thing. But I'm trying to think what else. Packaging design. I finally got to do some packaging. Learned that I don't want to do
Yay!
packaging. I learned
Oh,
how much I wanted to appreciate, or how much to appreciate the people that did do that when I was, learning how I wanted to be a designer and packaging's so cool. And I was like, it's hard.
that's so much fun. So that's what you wanted to do when you were younger, and then
Yeah.
a little while of doing it, you realized, nope.
Yeah, and it also may have just been the subject and maybe the parameters like of what I was designing. I feel like if I worked with a packaging company, so I mean, just because someone designs like the box, the way the box folds, doesn't mean that they're the ones designing the graphics on the outside. I learned that like we partnered with a like a packaging. They literally just work on the way the box folds, and then you lay the graphics down as long as I could do the graphics part. The box folding part just gave me a migraine.
I never knew that was its own job of like
Yeah, it's
figuring out how the packages fold together.
yeah, I mean, it's like I think you could spend all day just working on that. Like for especially if someone wants something super unique, it
Hmm.
would definitely be its own full-time job. And I feel like a lot of companies nowadays want that just to stand out. So
Yeah. Or
it's
like all
definitely
those toy packages that are so hard to
yeah,
get into.
yeah.
People definitely spend time doing that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you did all of that. You said you quit your job in kind of January, February?
Yeah. So the Orca got bought by Pride Sports in January/Christmas of this past year, and I had been kind of looking anyways, just kind of want something new, something a little less fast paced, that had a little more organization. So I was on Indeed. It was funny. I was in Red Robin, just sitting at the table, looking at Indeed. I was like, Tanner was like, "Put your phone away. We're eating." And I was like, "Hold on, let me just apply to this one job." And that Monday, I think that was Saturday. That Monday, they called me and was like, or sent me a chat and was like, "Hey, we'd love to interview you." And I was like, "Is this an in-person interview?" The name of the company is Pencil and Paper Company. Um, and they were like, yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was like my first in person interview. Because I had done other interviews just like kind of looking before I uh, did this one. And I never had an in person interview. It was always over the phone, which I hated. And so that I, did the interview. They gave me like a design test which is a thing in graphic design jobs I've learned. I had to do two, not two for one company, but another job I applied for, they had me do a design test, which is like it entails like they'll send you a prompt and then they give you X amount of days to do the project, and then you send it back and they just kind of get a feel of um your your vibe, your abilities, the way, the composition of the thing you put together, like just an overall view and just of your skills. And so I did. They I did the in-person interview. They sent me the design test, and I did it over the weekend, and then sent it to them, and they were like, well, what was it, a Wednesday? I sent it to them on Wednesday. They were like, we will get back to you on Friday with some feedback. And I was like, okay. And they called me Thursday morning, was like, we'd like to offer you the job. And I was like, oh my God, I wasn't ready. Now I have to decide if I'm going to quit my job.
Right?
Because,
No
like,
feedback either? They just...
well, they were like, we were really impressed. Like, we'd love to. We'd love to offer you the job. And I was like, I was ready to just relax. It's Thursday. You were gonna let me know on, because I spent like all weekend plus some of the week like working on the project. So I was tired. I was a little stressed. And so then I was like, well, now I have to like actually have to quit my job now. Which was the whole thing. Because I mean, I'd never had to really quit a job before. I mean, I've quit jobs I had as a teenager. They don't really care. But like this was like my first real job, and I had to, tell my boss at the time, like, so I found a new job. Plus, your company just got bought and no one knows what's going on except me. So I had to train, a new person to do my job, who was already stretched pretty thin where he was, because he was actually part of Pride Sports, like the guy that took my job. So, which, sorry, backing up, Pride is the business that bought Orca, and they had someone that worked at Pride already to come take my position at Orca. Therefore, he had two jobs and was supposed to do the job of me and himself still. So I was like, I'm
So he
glad I'm
wasn't too
leaving.
happy.
That's just too much.
And how'd you prepare for that? I mean, it's nerve-wracking to quit a
Yeah,
job, and especially your first time. How'd you prepare to have that conversation?
luckily I had some really, really awesome coworkers at Orca. And so I asked them, I was like, what would you do? I mean, like, how would you do it? I even asked a couple of them because when I was still like, should I leave? Like, am I making the right decision? Y'all just got bought. I kind of want to see what all happens. But then again, like the more I thought about it, and the more because I kind of told my new job that I was like interested, but I didn't give them a final decision. I was like, I'm just gonna take a day and like pay attention to all the conversations happening, and being that it's a new company, I just kind of want to really turn on my antenna, I guess, and like really pay attention. And the more I thought about it and listened, I was like, I loved my job at Orca. I love the people. But it turned into something like it turned into a completely different environment when the new business bought them out, and I was like, this isn't like, as much as I loved my job at Orca, this isn't that job anymore. So I really don't even have a reason to be sad or miss it, because it's not what it was anymore. So it's just best that I go. So
Did it take you a long time to figure that out? Sometimes I feel like we hold on to that past of what it used to be. Did it
oh no,
take you a little while to realize that?
it took me. I mean, I think it got fast forwarded for sure, because I had to tell my new job that I was coming, and like uh, tell my old job that I was for sure leaving, because I did go through a phase while I was telling them, I'm not going to be working here anymore. Like, find someone else. And then I was still sitting in on some of the meetings, because they would have weekly meetings, and they were just talking about what goings on and what was gonna, like, what the plan was. And I was like, man, all that sounds good now. Like, now I'm kind of having second thoughts. And I expressed that to them. They had the president of the company talk to me and tell, they tried to negotiate, like, well, you want me doing, because one of the main reasons that I wanted to leave was they had taken on like a lot more sports licensing, work ahead, which just means like putting high school and not high school, college and pro football teams on product. And the licensing got crazy, like so stressful. Um, so they were like, you won't be doing that anymore. We'll have someone else do that. You just work on like Orca core brand. You do the packaging, you do our website, you do all that. You don't worry about anything else. And while I appreciated that, I also didn't really believe that. I still somehow thought like, I'd still, because I remember hearing after I had told them no, because so fast forwarding, I told them, no, I'm done. Like, I actually gave them a 3 weeks notice. This is my 3 weeks notice. I remember hearing uh, one of my new boss at the time, he was like, "Now I may ask you when it gets crazy, I may ask you to help." And I was like, "Nope." Like, it's always crazy, so you would always be asking me to help.
Right.
So, it was when I heard that, I was like, some places never change, and if you do, it definitely doesn't change in a month or even a month and a half. So I had to say bye.
And so you started working, it's called Paper and Pencil Company, right?
Backwards, pencil and
Pencil and
paper.
paper. I
Yes.
knew I was gonna get it wrong.
Yeah, and so they're actually kind of a business that is split into kind of two parts. And I work on both from time to time. One side is sort of a lifestyle blog with Jen Soar. She's kind of like an influencer. She has a blog and she posts like interior design inspiration on her Instagram. She travels. She's an interior designer by trade, but she started a pencil and paper company to just kind of create more of a lifestyle brand around that interior design. So then there's the other side that is pretty much, it has the same name. It's Pencil or P&P Co. So Pencil and Paper Company, P&P Co. They kind of branded to be separate, but it's the same business. And we do, uh, so like retail strategy and marketing for distilleries right now, so whiskey and scotch distilleries, and we do a lot of business recently in Scotland. So I've been doing like basically we present like products in like a deck format, so it'd be like a, a booklet basically of all the products you would ever want to order for a distillery. So like if you've ever been to like a distillery that has like a gift shop kind of connected to it or a visitor
Mhm.
center, I'm designing the products that go in those visitor centers
Well,
in
that's
the
cool.
Scotch distilleries. So yeah, it's really fun. We're
And
actually,
in Scotland?
yeah, all the way in
In different
Scotland.
places?
I don't get to go there, at least not yet. My coworkers have to talk to everybody and get to know them. And then they relay all that to us, but maybe one day.
All right. And so what does that day to day look like? What are you designing now? So you're designing all the stuff for kind of these products. Is that different than what you were doing at Orca before? How is it different?
I know it sounds really similar. It is similar a little bit. There's a little more. There's so I guess contrasting what it was at Orca. So a company would send us a logo and say, I want this on this logo on this cup with this color and like go. But with P&P Co, the companies actually reach out to us as an agency and they're like, here's our logo, here's our colors, tell our story. So pick products that you think fit us, make designs that go along with this. And I like that aspect a lot more where it's like the brand itself. You're not the customer isn't pretending to know all the answers. They're actually wanting you to kind of guide them. And I've always wanted to work in an agency like that. Like it was like what I always said my dream job was. And that's I'm more so was meaning like the branding of the agency, like a new business that's like, we don't have a logo, we don't have anything. Can you just create our vision, create our look for us? So I'm almost doing that. And we do some of that, but right now the majority of it is just the strategy for them, and they already have branding. So yeah, I hope that
But still
answers.
a lot more freedom. You still get to decide
Yeah.
kind of what products to do rather
Yes.
than just
And
printing.
it's super rewarding to to look at what you're given, take the logo, take the colors, and then when you're done with that project, look at all the products and everything together and see it all like as one cohesive like collection. That's really nice. Or I don't know, a lot more rewarding to me than just being like, okay, put this on this, done. So
And that's kind of what you did for our logo, is kind of what you said you wanted to do, where you
yeah.
start from complete scratch, because I had no idea. Have no sense of graphic design at all. I'm not good at it. And so I reached out to Hannah and I was like, here, I want a logo. And she's like, well, what do you want it to look like? And I was like, here's my name. You decide. Pick the colors, pick the logo, tell me what I'm supposed to do. And she
Yes.
got to just run with it from scratch.
Yes. Well, and I appreciated you sending like uh, little pieces of ideas that you liked. That really helped because I was able to like kind of put them all together in a way to kind of become a new thing that, I think fit a little better. But I always kind of ask for that. Like, have you seen anything that, you might have been drawn to, even if it's just parts of it?
And do the companies that you work with, do they do something similar where they give you kind of suggestions of what they're thinking, or do they have you kind of start from scratch?
Yeah, it's either they will or I don't really talk to the clients directly. I actually have a creative director now that I answer to, so he may do that part where he's like, I think that this uh, this type of logo will fit what they're looking for because it's going to go on. Like recently, we did it's like a senior living homes like logo as like as not fun, but like as not exciting as that might sound. It was actually a really cool building, and so we were able to make something a little more like modern. And so yeah, usually we get that in some form, whether it's from the creative director or the client.
And you've mentioned a few projects, so mostly you're doing distilleries, but you do other companies as well?
Yeah, so there's a interior design portion of PMP as well that's not pencil and paper. And they do like the interiors of some of the distilleries. And so sometimes they'll need like mock-ups of the inside of what they're working on. And sometimes it's just the logo that's going to go on the outside. It's definitely like a wear a lot of hats kind of job right now, especially because some of the distilleries are not writing POs for anything because they're not open. So we're kind of doing a lot of things more so on the pencil and paper co side. So like I said, today I was working on the video editing thing. Last week I did the logo for the senior living home. Yeah.
So is it a little, so just some background for listeners too. We're obviously recording this during the quarantine,
Yeah.
May 2020, in case you're listening to this in the future. So a lot of businesses aren't open. Does that mean that you're doing a little bit more on that marketing side? So you've mentioned videos. Are you kind of trying to market the companies for when they come back? How has that
Yeah.
changed what you're doing?
We're still working because a lot of the ones we were working on before everything kind of closed down, they were going into construction, and since the construction has been halted, we this and construction on the distilleries themselves for the visitor center in Scotland. So the construction's been halted, so we have a lot more time. Plus, they're not writing POs. So yeah, we've actually focused more on the pencil and paper co side. So more so getting people getting people more interactive for when things do open back up. So yes, to answer your question.
All right. So that was a great description of what you're doing. This is your current job right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Pencil and Paper Co.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see yourself going next? I mean, even if you're staying in this company, do you see you doing kind of this position for a long time? Is there next steps?
I feel like when I've only been there since like the beginning of March. So I feel like a year from now, I will have moved up in Pencil and Paper Co. I don't know what that position looks like. Maybe it's, maybe we get one other person to kind of do what I was doing and I do more high level stuff, kind of like what my boss is doing now. Possibly. I don't I don't mind doing what I'm doing now, honestly. It's a good pace. Everything's very since there's so few of us, everything's very like streamlined, and you know who's doing what, and there's no confusion. So um, I kind of like just where I'm at. But I mean, obviously, I think things will change within the next year after they've had me a little while.
Great. And then I just kind of want to rewind a little bit to kind of look at your whole journey overall
Mhm.
and think about maybe your younger self or young people, students starting out right now.
Mhm.
What kind of advice would you give them? How would you walk them through kind of what to do if they want to become a graphic designer?
So this may be uh, not exactly what you're asking, but I always tell a lot of students, if you don't know what you want to do, especially go to community college, because I saved so much money by doing that because I mean, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so my mom was like, well, you're going to community college first. And I managed to get good enough grades to get a scholarship to go to Ole Miss, and I have no student loans. So that's
Nice.
amazing. So definitely go to community college, especially if you don't know what to do or what you want to do. And then the next, the next thing I would say is just like if you want to be a graphic designer, um, and you maybe aren't starting college yet, I mean, there's tons of ways to learn it on your own. I know that the guy that, like I said, I ended up training um, my the person that took my position at Orca from when I first started the production artist side of things. He had no experience with it, but learned it on site on the job, and now he wants to go to school to learn it. And but he already knows so much, and so if you don't want to necessarily just dive right in, you can always check it out, on your own and kind of explore and just see if that's what you want to do. I don't feel like that's possible for a lot of jobs because there's not as many things like tutorials on how to do things, even just on YouTube. So
Well, and does graphic design lend itself a lot to kind of freelancing and doing, designing your own website and having people contract with you to do stuff? So
oh, for
even if
sure.
you can't find a job, maybe you can kind of create your own world. Is that
For sure,
possible?
and I'd still do a good bit of that as you were one of my clients. Yeah, for sure. There's definitely websites out there that you can post your work on, and people can hire you through that. I've had several. I've had luck with that in several clients. It's never been something I've wanted to do full time, just because I'm really bad at being my own boss. I can kind of let things go out, let things last or to the last minute. Um, but yeah, I think certain kind of people can definitely make their own way in that doing freelance in that way.
I think that's a really good distinction of knowing who you are as a person and what structure and environment you need. Because I feel like, especially in America, we have this idea that being an entrepreneur, being freelance, maybe is a better type of thing because we have that individualistic success type of culture. And it doesn't work for everyone. I certainly couldn't do it either because I need deadlines. I need external pressure to
Yeah,
tell me when to get things done.
that and like if you work for yourself and you work at home, I feel like you never stop working. Like you're
Yeah.
always gonna be. I listen to podcasts all the time about freelance designers. They always work from home, and they never know when to leave the desk, leave the office, quote unquote. And I that's just not. I I live. I work to live. I don't live to work.
I like that saying. I think we're learning that in quarantine right now
Hmm.
too, those blurry lines between what is work, what is not work, when is the weekend, is
Yeah,
there a weekend anymore?
it all just
Are we
bleeds
always
together.
working? Um, yeah, so really good distinction of kind of what structure do you need, what environment do you need, knowing who you are in order to figure out what type of environment, what type of job might you want?
For sure.
Even within graphic design, I know we were talking before we started recording about the structure just within companies too, about how some companies are a little bit more relaxed in certain ways. Deadlines might be a little bit more flowing. They might be a little bit more open to new ideas and from different members of the companies, and other companies are a little bit more strict, deadline oriented, things like that. And that's a very narrow way of looking at it, because there's definitely more variety in companies than that. But knowing what you like in terms of those is a very strong attribute to have.
Definitely. And like I was saying, I wouldn't mind working from home 3 days a week and going in for two or vice versa, just something to kind of change the scenery a bit. I didn't want to jump in. I heard someone describe it as a marathon. Working from home, going from zero to working from home all the time is quite an adjustment. I would not want to do that for too terribly long, but here and there, because I don't like commuting, so I would love to do it a couple of times a week.
Yeah, and commuting is definitely something to think about depending on where you live too, because commuting in Oxford, Mississippi, where University of Mississippi is, was not that bad. There was, you
Oh,
know, the longest it ever took you to get somewhere was 20 minutes.
that was
And
with
that was if you were going all the way to the other side of town.
football
But
traffic.
but Nashville, I imagine, has a
Yeah,
lot more traffic.
yeah, for sure. And during the summer, it's not as bad because they have a lot of students that leave. But uh, it took me. That was actually a big selling point for when I took my new job because it was a 25-minute commute versus a 45-minute commute, and I was like, I didn't know how to act. I also got off at 4 instead of 5, and I was like, what do I do with all this extra time? I love it. And now I have tons of extra time, but still, uh, it was nice.
I like that. So other things went into your decision to take the new job other than just what the job entailed. So
Yeah.
you also
So,
looked at the time, the commute. Were there
yeah.
anything else?
Oh, for sure. So when I did my interview, I mean, this is just me being, I don't know, I've always wanted to work somewhere really like cool, like a cool location. And so I did my interview in a coffee shop that was connected to the office. And
Ooh.
I was like, this is amazing. Like, you mean I could just walk and get coffee? Like, oh my gosh. And then as I was talking to my would be boss during the interview, he was like, yeah, there's like a sculpture studio over there. There's a gallery right here. This is all connected into like one building that I was going to be working in. And I was just like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? And like the office I was going to have now, not working in it now, but, and they hadn't moved into it yet, but it had like a garage door that you could open
Ooh.
on like nice days. It had tons of windows. And the job I had at Orca, my office was literally, I think, a closet, like because it had like this big room on the outside when you first walked in, and then my office was this smaller room off of it, and I was like, this is just kind of a big closet. It's not even like a real office. So I was like, it was kind of a no-brainer if I like wrote it all down like a pros and cons
Yeah.
list.
Isn't it weird how the size and location of an office can really make a huge difference in
Absolutely.
determining
And
how
now,
happy you
like,
are?
I mean, going in, taking the up, the position at Orca, the promotion, I was like, oh, whatever. Like, I'm just glad to have an office. And a year and a half later of not seeing the sun until you leave in the
Yeah.
afternoons, it just kind of wears on you. So I was like, what? You'll have windows?
That's where I'm at now, where I'm in an office that has no windows. And I was
Oh,
so excited to get it when I got this job because it was my first office. It's big, it's perfect. And now every time I'm there, I'm like, but the office across from me has these really big windows and there's
yeah,
sun all the time.
yeah. You need that. It makes a huge difference in your mood, like going day to day.
All right. Well, we are kind of coming up on time. So, is there anything else that you would maybe advise to people about how to get into your career or anything else you wanted to mention?
Um, I guess just also stay looking at what people are doing. If you're new, stay up. Even if you're not new, even if you're a designer now, just stay up on the trends and what what your people who you follow on Instagram are doing, because that's not only your competition, but I mean you can take inspiration from it as well. And I don't know, I just like the community in general. Everyone's super creative by nature, and yeah, it's just a good place to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's my first podcast, so thank you for having me.
Yay. Well, welcome. I'm glad we were your first.
Yeah, I hope I didn't sound too scatterbrained.
Not at all. Thank you so much for listening. Head over to our website at careerjourneypodcast.com for more info, the latest episodes, and to join the discussion about careers. See you next time.